You know, when we think of police work, our minds usually jump to Hollywood car chases and dramatic standoffs. But today, we're going to push all that aside. We're going to dive deep into 1 week of police reports from a small American community, Antigo, Wisconsin, to find out what the day-to-day of law enforcement really looks like.
So let me ask you this. What does a police blotter really show? I mean, we're so used to seeing high-stakes investigations and constant danger on TV, right? That's the story we've been told. But the source material for this whole explainer, an actual police blotter, it tells a very different and honestly a much more interesting story.
And this right here just lays it all out perfectly. Our perception is geared for high-speed chases, but the reality in Antigo, it's more like dealing with a dozen cows blocking a county road. We imagine these big, elaborate heists, but what's really happening is an officer logging a found wallet. We think constant danger, but a huge chunk of their time is actually spent on things like barking dog complaints. It's a whole different world.
And that brings us to our first section, the real story here. The one you find when you look past the flashing lights isn't in those rare high-intensity moments. Nope, it's found in the constant, steady stream of everyday calls that show you what this job is really all about.
Just take a look at this breakdown. It's pretty revealing, isn't it? A whopping 70% of all calls are either traffic incidents or public service assists. That's everything from a car hitting a deer to helping someone who, locked their keys in their car. Meanwhile, the stuff we often think of as real police work, investigations and warrants, that makes up a way smaller piece of the pie.
And what about during these stops? What's actually happening? Well, as you can see from the blotter, the vast majority of these encounters end with a simple warning, either verbal or written. Way fewer actually result in a ticket or an arrest. It really suggests that the goal on the ground is often about education and correction, not just punishment. More of a heads up than a ticket book.
Okay, so how does all of this come together to form a daily routine? Let's take a look at the actual rhythm of an officer's shift, which, as we're seeing, is mostly defined by a high volume of these smaller, more routine calls.
But first, before we go any further, here's a quick little crash course in police lingo so you can follow along. VW or WW, that's easy, verbal or written warning. 1095 means someone's been taken into custody. UTL means the officer was unable to locate whatever they were looking for. And 102 is just a simple everything's good. Okay, now you can read this blotter like a pro.
What these reports show is this constant low-level hum of activity. Take this call, for example, a 911 hang-up from a local hardware store. An officer has to go check it out, even though, yep, it turned out to be nothing. And the blotter is just filled with these accidental dials, old numbers, and every single one has to be investigated.
And then there are the traffic stops. So many traffic stops. This one happened just after midnight. And the reason? A broken turn signal and a bad brake lamp. And the result? Just a verbal warning. So this isn't about chasing down reckless drivers. It's about basic equipment maintenance. And you see dozens of these every single week.
And sometimes the calls are, well, they're like this one. A report about a dog sniffing a sidewalk. An officer was actually dispatched, searched the area, and was, big surprise, unable to locate the dog. This is just a perfect illustration of the incredible range of things people call the police for.
But this constant hum of routine is broken up by moments that are anything but. This next section really gets into that duality, how officers have to act as both community caretakers and responders to real problems, sometimes in the exact same shift.
I mean, you literally can't make this stuff up. This was a real call. Not a robbery, not a pursuit, but more than a dozen cows just chilling in the middle of a county road. Now, that's an immediate public safety issue, for sure, just not the kind you ever see in the movies. And it doesn't stop there. If you thought cows were weird, how about this? Just a day earlier, a call came in about a couch, just sitting in the middle of a U.S. highway. So the officer who shows up has to deal with road-blocking furniture. Again, it's all about clearing a hazard and keeping people safe.
Ooh, this one might be my personal favorite. A call comes in about suspicious activity at Walmart. Someone's trying to break into a car with a screwdriver and a stick. Looks bad, right? But when the officer gets there, it turns out to be the owner who had locked his keys inside and was just desperately trying to get them out. It's such a great reminder that things are not always what they seem.
But let's be clear, it is not all lost keys and stray couches. The blotter also has these moments of genuine rule breaking, like this report of some guy just recklessly speeding on a four-wheeler, and a citizen even caught it on video. This is where the enforcement side of the job really kicks in.
But even those moments are woven into that quiet, constant hum of service. Now, I want you to pay really close attention to the timing on these next two slides because they show just how fast an officer's day can completely change. At 11:36 in the morning, an officer logs a found wallet into the property cabinet, a simple, helpful act of public service.
Then, just 31 minutes later, a totally different kind of call comes in, one that completely changes the entire tone of the day, a serious report of abuse or neglect. And that is the reality of the job. In half an hour, an officer has to mentally pivot from the simple act of logging a lost wallet to responding to one of the most difficult situations you can imagine. That constant context switching, it's a huge, unseen part of the work.
So, after sifting through hundreds and hundreds of these entries, what's the big picture that starts to emerge? Well, it's not just a portrait of a police force, it's really a portrait of a town.
The real story isn't about heroes and villains. It's not about some epic war on crime. The story that this police blotter is actually telling us is so much more nuanced and so much more human than that.
So here are the key takeaways. Policing, at its core, is an incredibly broad public service, not just crime fighting. As this blotter shows, the routine, mundane work of a caretaker, the traffic stops, the animal complaints, the lockouts, it far outweighs the dramatic role of a pure enforcer. Officers are constantly toggling between these two roles. And ultimately what this police report is a raw, detailed snapshot of a community's life, its little frustrations, its moments of crisis, and its everyday needs.
And maybe that's the biggest thing to take away from all of this. A police report isn't just a record of law enforcement. It's the messy, mundane, and sometimes really moving diary of a town. It captures the rhythm of daily life in a way that very few other documents can. And understanding that rhythm, well, that's the first step to understanding what policing in America really is.